For the following problems, we're going to find the second derivative where y is related to x implicitly by the equation below, where we have x squared plus 4y squared equals to 9. Now usually when we're finding the second derivative of a function, we'd first find the derivative and then we'd find the second derivative. Now we're going to do that, but we got to use implicit differentiation to find the derivative of these functions because the function is not solved explicitly for y. So we've got to first find the first derivative, the dy dx, but again using implicit differentiation. So remember, for implicit differentiation, what we're going to do is take the derivative of both sides with respect to x, and we're going to consider again that y is a function of x. So for taking the derivative of the left-hand side with respect to x, so the derivative of x squared, that would just be 2x. And then for the derivative of the 4y squared, well, we're going to use the power rule. And in this case, we're going to multiply by the exponent, so we'd have 8y to the first, because we subtract 1 from the exponent. But again, we're going to assume that y is a function of x, so we're also going to have to use the chain rule. So when we take the derivative of this 4y squared, we'd have that 8y and then times the derivative of the inside, so the derivative of the y with respect to x, that would be the dy dx. And then the derivative of the right-hand side, well, the derivative of a constant would just be 0. So then what we would do next, to find the first derivative, what we would do is solve for dy dx. We just simply subtract 2x from both sides, so we get 8y dy dx equals to negative 2x, and then divide both sides by 8y, so we'd have dy dx equals to negative 2x over 8y, so dy dx would be, let's cancel our factor of 2 from the top and bottom, so we just have negative x over 4y. So that would be the first derivative. Now we now need to find the second derivative of this negative x over 4y. Now we have negative x over 4y, where again y is a function of x. So this is a quotient of two functions of x. So we're going to have to use the quotient rule. So we take the derivative of each side. So the derivative of the left side, that would just be that d squared y over dx squared. Now the derivative of the right hand side, like I said, we'd use the quotient rule for this, so that would be the derivative of the top, so derivative of negative x, that would be negative 1, times the denominator, so times the 4y, minus the top, the negative x, times the derivative of the bottom, so the derivative of 4y, or again, y is a function of x, so the derivative of 4y, that would be 4 dy dx all over the denominator squared, so the 4y, that quantity squared. So let's see, this would be negative 4y and then plus x times 4, and now dy dx, remember we just found what that was, and that was the negative x over 4y all over that 4y, that quantity squared, so that would be 16y squared. So this would be negative 4y, and let's see, now this would be minus, let's see, cancel those 4's, so this would be minus x squared over y all over 16y squared. Now what we could do is, to simplify this complex fraction, because we have a fraction within a fraction, we could first subtract the two terms in the numerator by finding a common denominator, which would be y. So this would be negative 4y squared over y. I multiply top and bottom of this first one by y, minus x squared all over y, divided by 16y squared. So that would be this negative 4y squared minus x squared all over y all over the 16y squared. Now dividing by the 16y squared, that's the same thing as multiplying by 1 over 16y squared. So this would be so far negative 4y minus x squared all over 16y squared. Now, we try to simplify this if we can, and one thing, if you look at this, and this was negative 4y squared, sorry. So we have negative 4y squared minus x squared in the numerator. Now remember, we knew that x squared plus 4y squared was equal to 9. So one thing, let's multiply both sides of that original equation by a negative sign. So this also means that what? Negative x squared minus 4y squared equals to negative 9. And that's what we have here, because negative 4y squared minus x squared, that's the same thing as negative x squared minus 4y squared. So that's equal to negative 9. So this would be negative 9 over 16y squared. So that would be the second derivative of this function using implicit differentiation.